Hello, everyone, and welcome to Climate Conversations. I'm your host, Kathy Yang, and today I'm here with Lyn Ocharoenchai. Lyn is an environmental journalist, and she has worked with MIT World Wildlife Fund. Um, Also, she has been published in Manga Bay, MIT News, the Nature Conservancy, and many other well-known organizations and news outlets. She actually worked with World Wildlife Fund as the lead story producer for the Asia Pacific region from 2019 to 2024. She's also an avid podcaster with her series Who I Met Today, that interviews various professionals in the STEM field. She's also an experienced natural photographer and a filmmaker. Would you like to add anything to your bio?
No, I think you've covered it, and thank you so much. Those are very kind words. I think I'm very spread out across various things.
So let's just get right into it. Like, you were a climate activist back in Thailand, and you actually led one of the first few climate strikes in Thailand. So like, what really inspired that decision, and how did you gain so many participants and like publicity?
Sure, thank you, Kathy, for asking this and for having me on the show. To go back to the climate strikes, this was a while ago, and to first say it was a bit unintentional the way it started. Basically, I was in the last year of university in my undergrad, and I was in class one day just reading about some news, and I
Mhm.
saw the news of Greta Thunberg, who
Oh, yes.
yeah, and I had already been writing about nature. I was at the time I was already interning at Greenpeace, and then I interned at Bangkok Post, and it just became very interested in covering environmental issues from when I was studying it in high school. And so I was quite frustrated about all the environmental issues I saw going on in Bangkok. And the only way I knew how to do anything about it at the time was through writing. But after reading that article about Greta, I was very moved, and not because of the movement she started, but because of what she was emotionally going through. And at the time, I was very frustrated in my own life and in seeing the peers around me. And I just felt like, why is such a huge issue like climate change
Mhm.
something no one in Bangkok really seemed to care about? And after reading that article, I resonated with the frustration she felt. But at the same time, I felt like just by writing, I wasn't very much doing anything. And so I decided to organize a climate strike that Friday
Oh,
after I read the
wow.
article, because it just so happened to be, that week. And I just posted on Facebook, and then it blew up because
Wow.
I was interning at Greenpeace that summer. So, I had people on Facebook who I had worked with at Greenpeace, and so they started sharing it, and then more people messaged both friends and strangers. And then so by Friday, I'm like, oh well, I
Wow.
didn't know what I had done, so because the word was out already, I had to do something, and then I
Mhm.
organized this climate strike, which again, I had no idea what I was doing. Bless the people at Greenpeace, they came and they lent
Oh.
me a megaphone on the day of, and I was really unprepared. I didn't really know what I was demanding. I just knew it was about climate change and I knew it was a serious issue, but I didn't really have anything prepared. I didn't know how to be an activist. I didn't really know what activism
Mhm.
is, especially looking back in hindsight for I guess 5 to 7 years now that I did that, and I was trying to learn about it as I went. So on the first day, some 20 people showed up. That was including some parents and their
Mhm.
babies, like
Oh.
toddlers. And we just had these few signs. And most of them were all foreigners because I went to international schools, and that was just kind of my social circle. And it was what I was posted was in English. And so Yeah, not very many Thai people showed up, although more people wanted to come join
Hmm.
and they didn't want to skip school and work, but
Wow.
they still wanted to come, show support. And so I organized the next one the next day on a Saturday. And this time I came all prepared. I knew what like some lines I should say and better charts to go around Bangkok and it was much more organized. And then from there on, there was just lots of news coverage because it was very timely to be with to show solidarity with the rest of the youth around the world, and also because it had not been done in Thailand before. So yeah, lots of news coverage I got there, and from there people started reaching out and offering to volunteer with me, and it just became a thing, and I was just really learning about it as I went.
Wow. So I guess it's because it wasn't like really like popular at that time in your specific area. I guess so many people showed up to support you. That's awesome. So it is true that like role models like Greta Thunberg is also one of my role models, especially when I was a kid. I would always read about her like online and her amazing stories, and it's awesome to see how she like directly influenced activists like you.
Yeah. And she influenced also through just being her, and it
Yeah.
was from some other news, from word of mouth. And then what I realized now looking back is it just takes one sentence where like
Hmm.
sometimes change, like I struggled with this a lot and still today, where it's like how do I make the biggest impact ever? And I oftentimes working in storytelling, I've come to feel like, oh, the articles I write don't really matter. And then on good days, I remember that like, wait, the person I am today is simply because of a compilation of things that people like my parents and my peers had said to me as I grew up, and that just shapes the way you think and the things you care about and what you
Hmm.
choose to do.
Hmm. Could you like talk a bit about the like climate issues that you face in Bangkok or
Yeah, so at that moment, again, I was very uninformed for how I started, I feel. The biggest problem and most clear and prominent one was plastic pollution, which a lot of people would argue is not very directly related to climate change in that like as in the plastic trash alone is not contributing to rising temperatures.
oh.
Although, of course, if you link back to, fossil fuel production and that being used in plastic, it's linked. But at
Mhm.
the time in Thailand, there's like a huge hit phrase, which is reduce plastic waste, save global warming. And it creates such a misconception that if you
Uh-huh.
simply stop using plastic bags, you'll save the entire planet. And so, yeah, that was one huge issue, both in the plastic issue and continues to be, and then also the misconception of environmental issues and the lack of awareness. And also, speaking of that time, I think when I started it, it was climate change was just still a very misunderstood issue in
Hmm.
Thailand and in the region. It's not like in the US where it's very polarized, where people deny it. It's actually people didn't really know what it was
Wow.
up until maybe the past 5 to 10 years. And of course that's a very generalized way of saying it.
Hmm.
Um, Other issues in Thailand, sure, like many other developing countries, is, rapid urbanization and industrialization that's leading to the degradation of ecosystems, deforestation to build new
Yeah.
cities. Air pollution is a very big one because we've got every roughly around March and April, actually March to May and sometimes even earlier on in February to all the way to May and June, we have a really bad pollution issue, which makes Chiang Mai, which is a city where I used to
Hmm.
live, makes it the place with the worst air quality in the world for maybe a week. And it's similar in nearby cities and nearby countries because of it's many reasons, but largely agricultural burning.
Uh-huh.
And just the geography of that area being like a bowl where and with the air pressure and the temperature and the seasonality of that period with it being summer and that also being the season where all they have to turn farmers have to turn their crops and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
start a new fresh field or thinking of that all across that region, it just becomes like a big smoking pot.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that plus the atmospheric conditions, plus the air pollution from cars, as well as factories, and everything combined, it's just really hard to breathe. And
Oh my.
I've lived through those phases there before. And when I say it's hard to breathe, it imagine you're walking around, and mostly this is me on my motorbike riding around,
Mhm.
but you can feel the air particles pierce through your nostrils, your airway,
Oh my God.
because we call it PM 2.5, which it's like a
Oh.
particulate matter, so it's smaller than 2.5 microns, and
Hmm.
that's really, really dangerous for you, and especially for people who are already have compromised immunity. And yeah, that's another really huge issue that we've not been able to solve as an entire region, despite it being a persistent issue for more like, decades and more now.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'd say all of that combined with the biodiversity loss that mo many countries are experiencing at the moment, and food security, everything from the effects of climate change. And oh, another big one is coastal erosion and
Uh,
sea level rise because we're such a huge coastal country. We've got a very long coastline, and Bangkok itself, it's a dense city that sits right on the coastal on a delta. So the way
wow.
we've constructed the city is it's on land that's just unstable to begin with and has its natural cyclical um little cycles of flooding and f ebbs and flows, which is natural and normal, except once you place huge concrete structures there that can't absorb or pass through water, it just doesn't work and things get destroyed.
Hmm. And it's definitely gotten worse over the years because
Yeah.
like thermal expansion, like the rising water. Wow. So that's actually a lot of issues that probably inspired you and like everything, I guess, like you said, came together. Geography, deforestation, and more. They just all created like a huge issue that still, as you said, persists today. So could you talk about the importance of, especially since your experience with like social media, the importance of climate education, like podcasts, films, because I think these medias are like a rare opportunity for people across the world, like in the States, to learn about these other countries and the issues that they're facing.
Yeah. Communication, storytelling, and social media being the medium through which they carry, those are all important for any important message you want to tell people, right? Like if you want
Hmm.
someone to act on something, you first need to make them care. And
Yeah.
before they care about something, they first need to know what it is. So we also can't tackle a problem if we don't know what it is or what it looks like and, try to figure out solutions. And so that's why it's all very important. Stories are important to inform, to inspire people, to enable them to act, give them the tools to actually do something about it. And I say they're important with all of these aspects, and they really are like you can't just do one without the other because if
Hmm.
you inform, you just really drain people. That's my
Yeah.
beginning phase of, like talk about the issues, tell them what they are, but people care, but that's just not really enough because people have other needs going on as well. People
Hmm.
have rent to pay and they've got a child to raise today. They can't be worrying. Sure, like their future, their kids' future is also important, but like I need something today.
Focus on the current. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And other than that, people are just lazy and tired, bored. Um, so there are many ways to inform. Like you inform through talking about very pressing issues, or you can also entertain where you like you to people who don't necessarily climate care about climate change, you might bring them in through food, or you might bring them in through fashion. Like, did you know that you can make um more sustainable fashion that doesn't create waste from using leather made from mushroom or something like that? Like that's
Yeah.
just fascinating. I think another very important aspect to storytelling is to fascinate people. I guess back to the inspire, but I think the fascination bit is the most important bit for me because especially with things like climate change, like that's just depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I a lot of these things I learned from experience. Initially I was, all on this depressing train, and then
Mm-hmm.
I got too depressed myself, and then I thought, okay, no one's gonna join me if I'm this depressed. So I shifted on to more fun things and, using humor as a way to bring people on and make complex topics more easy to understand and easy to act on. So that's partly why I'm here. I came back to grad school last year to do science communication at
Mm-hmm. Oh,
MIT. And so, climate change is a very complex topic to talk about and break down, especially if you have no basis of
yeah.
science or environment, and you have to say like, oh, before you even get to the solutions, you have to understand, oh, the greenhouse gas emissions and this and that. And that was something I struggled with a lot in the beginning days of
Mm-hmm.
the climate strikes, because let's say you're walking down the street and you have 30 seconds to say a message to a group of strangers who you don't even know what they know. What's a very clear and concise message to get them care about this issue that may
Uh,
not directly affect them? And yeah, I think it's very fun to figure out those psychological tactics. Very fun, but
Factor.
oftentimes very frustrating too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very hard to figure out. Everyone's got their own ways of consuming information.
Mm-hmm.
And you also can't do it alone. You can't
That's
just fix these
true.
issues alone. So again, storytelling is just very important to get all these people to care and then come on board to work with you to do something.
Yeah.
And you can't just throw at them, the IPCC report, right?
Mm-hmm.
The climate report. You can't just give that to anyone to expect them to change their lives. Like you have to, if you're talking to like someone who owns a restaurant, you have to kind of digest it for them. And some
Yeah,
people
break
just
it.
want to be told what to do. Like people want to help, but like they don't have the time to figure out how to help. Yeah, it's very useful for lots of things.
Yeah, I think like
Yeah.
especially now, like media, like videos, yeah, like TikTok and that kind of stuff can like catch attention. And then but as you said, like education's like the first step because like if you don't know about the issue going on, like how are you gonna solve it? Was that like present in the strikes you completed? Like a lot of people didn't really know about the issues Bangkok and like Thailand was facing, so you first had to like educate them and then you can go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you also talked about the articles you've written. I think that articles are also another great media because like especially students doing research, we can look to these organizations. So what are some of your favorite research projects or favorite articles that you've completed or even that you're currently working on right now? And then how do you choose these stories and these topics to cover? I guess why did you choose these like specific stories?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the ones that have been my favorite have just come to me. They weren't topics I actively went for. They were,
Hmm.
yeah, just collaborators reached out and I hopped onto it. That's fantastic. Thank you, collaborators. One of them, there's two parts. There are ones that I really enjoyed producing, and then there are other ones that I enjoyed. I like the final product.
Ah,
Yeah, so
the
there are two
process, like,
separate categories, yeah. I'll start with the first one. This is a story on it's a story on indigenous communities in the north of Thailand. Just summarized the article, there was going to be a river diversion project in which, just to visualize it, there are two rivers that run in
mhm.
parallel in Thailand, and they're trying to connect them
Oh,
to to increase the water supply or something.
mhm.
And but then doing so would destroy a bunch of forests and indigenous communities along the way and
Oh,
flood their homes. And so me and this photographer, we went on a trip for a week and just going through to visit various communities and then interviewing them, taking pictures of what was at threat. A very beautiful way of living. A lot of these communities, they grow their own food
mm.
and they're very secluded from the closest town because they're just so self-sufficient, and a lot of them didn't even know about the project because the project was being done and it was passing through from the government in very unethical ways. I don't know if you're familiar with a term called FICP, or Free Informed Prior Consent. Anyway, it's like a new jargon or term that people have come up to say, hey, if you want to install or implement a new, let's say, infrastructure project or project of any sort that has an
Mhm.
impact on the community, you'll need to get informed consent from the community who lives there. And none of these communities had that because they didn't even know that these projects were coming. Either they knew and they were lied to about what would happen because these projects would flood their entire towns, but instead they were told that, oh, this will bring employment, you'll have
Oh,
great supplies of electricity, this and that. Or they just simply did not even know it was coming.
oh my God.
And so we went to interview them and to get the story. And that assignment was just so crazy to me to travel through all these different places and to see the communities and talk to the people. And I was so touched by the people I met as well as the activists who worked very hard to get to these communities to relay the message, and also seeing how community activism works, of why some communities are more prone to these projects and other communities stand very strongly in protecting their homes. And so that was just like an extremely fun assignment to do and also very emotional
Wow, yeah.
because it's like you go in as a journalist. And there's a term called parachute journalism, which you shouldn't do. It's to go into a place and then you report and then you leave
Just leave,
and
yeah.
like very quickly. But and I don't know if this crosses the line, but anyway, like my point is I go in and then I could share their stories and it's great to create awareness, but at the same time I could leave these places, whereas they
Ah,
have to face the consequences and hope that this will not destroy their homes. This is the only home they have. So that was just really inspiring to me how people are, it's like we either protect our home or we die. So I would say that's the most eye-opening project I've done. And then the most the coolest one I've done, I'd say there are two.
mm-hmm.
One is this another story on an indigenous community who I just went there and I pitched this project to an outlet. I was in this fellowship at the time with an outlet called Climate Tracker. And I wanted to do something a bit more creative. So I decided to do like a photo essay. The earlier on when I was starting to learn about indigenous cultures and their conservation methods, and in many countries, many cultures, they might consider belief systems a bit superstitious, but then I
Mm-hmm.
was interviewing people, more interviewing scientists, and they're like, this completely aligns with the science. It's just stories told in different ways. Of like,
Oh,
one example is the one belief is like if you're in this forest, don't kill a deer, like a pregnant deer, otherwise it will bring bad luck to your family.
Mhm.
And that might just seem like some, superstition, but then really scientifically, it's just like don't kill the pregnant deer because
Yeah.
they won't like during breeding season, they'll just like their population will go down. And that's just so fascinating to me how these
Mhm.
parallels work. And I wanted to produce a story that was, weaving these two worlds of
Oh.
science and spirituality. And the fact that what we know today and call science is very Western science dominated.
Mhm.
It's just one way of viewing and understanding and talking about the world, whereas there are so many before Western science was established.
Mhm.
And another project I really loved too was when I was working at WWF, I got to do field reporting on some wild elephants in Thailand.
Wow.
And a lot of the bigger topic there was human wildlife conflict, where these elephants were already living in the forest, but then a town formed near that forest and more agriculture came in and the town started growing. So you would have all these crops and mostly pineapples, like really juicy, delicious pineapples that are just in rows that are easy to pick. And then of
Mhm.
course the elephants are like, yum, like let me go raid these crops because
Oh.
it's easy food. And so you would have so much conflict there that's very dangerous to both people and animals. And so I went there to cover that and I produced a few stories. One was on, this social dynamic, and then the other one was on the conservation technology used. And that to me was just so cool. Like they were using drones
Oh.
to drones and at night, so you have night vision camera on the drone, and then it would follow and see kind of the temperatures of the elephants down
Mhm.
below and be able to track them. And then we used camera traps, and I it was just so crazy. I was, to see elephants in the wild. I was just there posted with the videographer, and we were out there for many hours just watching these elephants. And then the most fun part to me was I was riding around on the back of the motorbike of the rangers, and I love being with rangers because they're just so hilarious, especially like in Thailand, the Thai rangers are just so
Mhm.
fun to chat with. And I just remember like many nights being on their motorbike, like grabbing onto them while they're chasing around the elephant to kind of, push them back into the forest so they don't come into the neighborhood. And like there with my phone, trying to take a phone, like a vertical video, and then trying to like remember details to produce the story
Mhm.
afterwards. And like we're just chasing around and we're going through bushes and things. And I love that part so much. I like that's my favorite part of the job is to do
Wow.
field reporting. And that was also new to me, the field of conservation technology, and also kind of bridging my time to come to MIT now, where it's like MIT is known for the engineering and technology. And it was so, this what with wildlife and biology and conservation kind of bridging onto this world, as well
Mhm.
as AI and how that's being used to identify animals. So yeah.
Wow, you've covered a wide range of stories.
Mm,
That's like such a fun experience, but also like you said, can be very emotional. Like, oh, I can't imagine like the indigenous communities and like I wonder how they're doing today. But yeah, journalism, very important. What would you ask the audience to take away? Like, do you have any last things you want to share or any advice before we end this session?
I think if you want to do anything related to climate or environment and have some sort of positive impact, you can do it already in your field. Like you don't
Mhm.
have to become a conservationist or a climate scientist because climate is such an overarching topic. It's embedded in your food and in the clothes you wear or in the cars you drive and everything. So at this point, and I don't know why we don't already do this, but it's just like an underlying principle in every aspect of business, and
Mhm.
I think we're already trying to do that as the world, but it's just a bit hard in terms of whatever loopholes that they've had and you know um the greenwashing that's out there today. Oh yes, maybe another thing I might add in there is very important to have fun.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's what I'm learning the hard way. And I still continue to go through these lessons because there are days when I really care about this and I feel really hopeless. And
Oh,
sometimes you just have to turn off the news really and just focus in the things that are in closest proximity to you because it's such a huge issue. And at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. Like we're all gonna die. And to me, that's gave me so much relief in my work because it's like we try the best we can. But remember, it's about like what you can do in the most immediate sense and what is a life in which you make the planet where you can live longer, but you've spent most of it worrying. And I say this to myself right now.
mhm.
Every day I'm worrying, and I think if I think 10 years from now I'd like to look back and be like, you're silly, like stop worrying. But be aware, do best you can, be aware of the issues, but channel
Just
that energy
like
the
control what you can, like just try your
yeah.
best. Like, yeah, I think that's a really impactful message.
Mm,
Well, thank you so much to Lynn for joining me today.
thank
I
you.
learned so much about, the various articles you've written, all these different stories, that we see in media that are very important to know, like the Indigenous story and just like these takeaways, very helpful. Just control what you can and just try your best, especially when it comes to climate advocacy. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Kathy. That was really sweet. And best of luck on your work as well.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.